This is the bottom of a compact twined basket, and when Flora started out the compact twined basket, she would just take and tie a knot at the bottom of the basket, tying the warps together. And she would weave so that she added at equal intervals. And then when she got this far, then she just added, not mathematically like she did right at the start. It's very similar, except that she didn't do it as mathematically as Flora, because Lucy's were finer, so she's really adding more randomly than Flora did.
Before you get to this stage, it's so important that you have all of your materials prepped. If you're doing a false embroidery pattern, you know how many leadies you're going to need. You've worked that out. And then you have all of your whoos and you have everything ready to go. Your first starters need to be the length of your basket plus, I usually like to do, so say you're making this small basket, this is the bottom roughly, the sides, that needs to be the size of your basket. And then I always, when I'm making my materials, I leave an extra 1.5 or 2 inches of working room. The ladies all kind of developed a preference for how many they started with. Lucy, I noticed on her video, started with 6. Auntie Lillian started with 5. So I started with 5 too, and I've actually done as many as 7 or 8. 5 for me is a good number. You want to stack them if you can, as much as possible, but this first row is about fanning out your material and strengthening that start and that core. And so when you're starting, you also, it's a good idea to make sure, it's good practice to make sure that your weavers are not the same length so that they don't, you're not adding in at the same time 2 separate weavers. So I'm going to tie a knot in the center here. And then I, right away, like to choose which one is going to be my first. And then I tie a knot in the top. In this first round, you have to really tell your bark what it's going to do. So with this beginning, you are fanning out. You're opening it up right away. So after you tie your knot, you want to pull your warps up here like this. You want to start with your right weft, then you do your first stitch, and you're going to stitch all the way around. And then you just find your second one, you kind of decide as you go around. If one sort of pops up and just says, pick me, then that's the one you go with for the next one. So that's number 2. And you're wanting to really pull towards the center because you're pulling everything to the center around that knot, and you want that really tight. So here you go around again. You're pulling your leady up and out. You're bringing your material, you're pulling that in toward the center, keeping the tension tight. Pull that over. Go to the next one. And you're doing this all the way around, pulling towards your center knot. making sure that you get each leady. And these are just fanning out. And I'm pulling these out because I'm thinking, am I going to do this one next or am I going to do this one next? I think I'm going to do this one. And you're fanning out.
So Annette, as you get to this last stitch, and they're all single warps now, I know Nani learned from Flora when she added warps singly.
Lillian just added them singly.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now, and Lucy, I think she had a system where she goes around 3 times and then adds. The concept is that you want at least 1 row of stitching between your add-ins. So I like to go around twice. For me, I find if I go around 3 times, it's just too much. You want to keep this flat, and so that's what you're thinking in your mind when you're adding. And you also know how many of these, if you're doing a false embroidery pattern, you know how many you're going to be needing to add in, and that comes into play also. So I've gone around once, and so I'm going to go around 1 more time. And this material is a little bit thin, the hoop, so I'm not pulling as tight as I probably normally would, but that's actually, it's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to go around again. Okay, and this is where I start. You could go around another row, but you want to feel, you can look at the separation, and you kind of know when you need to start. If I were to go around again, I feel like it would start to curve up, and you want to keep it flat. So I'm going to start adding in now. Now these only have to be as long as the side of your basket plus your extra 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So you can cut these in half. And then you want to add them in, evenly spaced as much as possible to keep it nice and round. So I like to add in every 2. If it started to kind of curve up, you could, you can add in every 3, or you can just add in 1 in a spot if you notice that there just is kind of a gap there. So, so this is then number 1, number 2, and then I will add in a 3rd. And then so you just put that in the back and go around. Go 2. And you're always trying to position these as you go around and tug them into place. And sometimes I can just feel the material starting to curve up, and so then I'll add every other one. So there's not really, a particular formula. There's just the object of keeping it flat, keeping your material even, and making sure that you have a row, at least 1 row of twining between your add-in rows, if possible.
So with this method, then after it dries, you have to trim the tails on the back?
Mm-hmm. When your basket is finished, you just go in or you can trim them before you turn up the sides. If I'm making a bigger basket, I think I usually just try and start with more. And then you're not having to add in right away.
So from what you're doing now, do you just keep doing the same thing until you reach the width of the bottom that you want?
Yeah, so you're just, and you've added in everything, every leady that you're going to need for your false embroidery pattern. So this is my first row now that I've completed, and now I wouldn't add in any more to this row. Also, if you add in too close together, it's obviously going to get really bulky too. So I will go around 2 times and then add in again. But see how it's just staying nice and flat? That's what you want.
I want to learn myself. What are you doing there?
I'm getting all the water out of it with my thumbnail. You don't want to add in the same place. You always make it just a little bit longer on one side. And then when you're ready to start, you always center it to make sure it's in the center, that there's equal on each side. And one thing Flora taught me was just tie a real simple knot, just like you do when you're tying your shoelaces. And you can start that way. Because you're going clockwise, you're going in this direction. And when she started out, she did 2, 1. You'll do 2 the first time. Okay? Then you do 1. Okay. Then you do 2. And it doesn't matter which 2 you grab. Those 2 wanted to be together, and so I'll leave them together. And you're taking the non-working weaver, you're going up and back, then you're going over that 1, and then under 2. Okay, so then it's up and back. The non-working weaver goes up and back. The working weaver crosses over and then goes behind the 1. Okay. Pull it real close to the center. Okay, the non-working weaver goes up and back, and then the working weaver goes under the 2. And now that you've come all the way around, you put a marker on one of these 2. But you're going to reinforce it, and you're going to go around one more time. It's easy to get mixed up when you have 2 red weavers and one is short like the other one. So I usually put a marker on each one to know which ones are my weavers. Okay, that one, and then the other one. Go 1 round, doing over 2 and under 1. Okay. Now you're going to go 1, 1, 1 all the way around. You're not going to add until the 4th row. Okay, so. And be sure to tie your weaver because they're all red cedar and it's really hard to see it. So make a slip knot like this. See? So when you pull it, you just pull it out like that. I know it's confusing at this point. I'll go through it again with you, okay? So there's 2 here and you put it over. And this is the working weaver because it went underneath. This is now the working weaver. And that one's the non-working weaver. Oh. And then this one goes over and then under. Okay. See, over that one and under 2. And pull them tight toward the center because you don't want any gap there. Okay, so that one makes the X. Up and back. This one goes over that one and under this one. Okay.
This one goes under?
Uh-huh. Under 2. Here's the other one.
So it goes over.
Okay. That's it.
And this one goes under 1?
Uh-huh. Under 1. And back. Under 2. Now that you have come around, you'll put a marker in, tie a knot and put a marker in. Under 1. Now that you have come around, you'll put a marker in, tie a knot and put a marker in. Let's go around one more time. Just, over 2, under 1, all the way around one time. But be sure to wet these because if it breaks, then you have to add another one. It's feeling easier now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now 1, 1, 1, all the way around. You're doing good. Boy, you've got the fingering down. Good for you. You're doing great.
She's October 28th, so Halloween. Decides for October she's going to dress up.
Now, I hope everybody's that easy. Because I'm going to let you teach them. That's what Holly does so that people remember it. If they learn it, then they have to teach somebody else.
I need to add more
Yeah.
of these.
Okay. Yeah, we're adding right away, so even though it's a little long, 'cause then it'll make it easier when you're adding to the to your warp. So we're going to go ahead and add to your weaver. Okay, and get all the water out with your thumbnail. Then you won't have a whole bunch of holes in your basket if you get the excess water out. Otherwise, it shrinks. The weaver that she was using,
Yeah.
I'm going to use it as a warp because she could use it there. Okay.
The last tail of it?
Yeah.
Oh. So is that kind of just, you can do that if you feel like it?
Right.
Artist discretion.
Right. Okay, now get a warp because we're going to start adding. Now you're going to add to each one all the way around. When you add to the warp, you put it in like this, okay, and you weave as if it was there all along, okay, and then you take the other end and you pinch it. Now let's get another one, and it goes with the next one, like that. And you hang on to it with your middle finger in the back. Now let's get another one. Okay, you just lay it underneath and hang on to that so you don't lose the tension. Okay, and when you pull it down, then it will go with the next one. Okay, you'll add to this one. And just as if it belonged there. Okay, so you're adding to each one around. Okay. Now add to that one. Hold on to it with your index finger. You know, if you develop your own way to do it, it's okay too. Don't worry if you find it easier to do it another way. But this is the way that Flora taught me how to add. And she also taught me to add just using one if you felt like it, you know. Okay, and we've got all the way around. And you'll go around one time like that. Then each one is going to be separated again. It may look too compact, then you'll do 2, 1, 2, 1. You'll see when you get around, okay? Now take it undone and start over.
So Ariel is doing her twined bottom basket, and as she's adding her warps, she's adding them as she needs them, which means she could end up with an odd or even number. It just depends on the gaps that she sees as she's weaving along. So Ariel, if you could show me one of those gaps that you might be coming to in the future. So like right here is a good example of where she's going to be adding. And this warp is single, but this one's double. So when she gets there, she's just going to separate that double warp and weave them individually.